Welcome to the Church of Thomas. Render under God. Sermon 5/11/08. I recently had a dream that reminded me that it can be very perilous to ignore what Jesus said. He warned that things of this world belong to this world. He then told us that there were things that belonged only to God. When the Pharisees wanted to trap Jesus, they asked him if they should follow the secular rules or resist. Matthew 22:17-21. Tell us, therefore, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, Why do you test me, you hypocrites? Show me the tax money. So they brought him a denarius. And he said to them, Whose image and inscription is this? And they said to him, Caesar's. And he said to them, Render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. When you are given gifts to work for God, you are also given a great responsibility to use it for God, not personal reasons. The innate energy and power that you were given as gifts that fall into this category. Here's the dream I remembered when I woke up. There was once a wonderful king. All the people loved him and gave him many gifts. One day, some tax collectors showed up. They claimed to have the authority to take the gifts of the people to the king. The king was dressed casually and was not recognizable near them. The king said nothing. If the gifts arrived, he did not care who carried them. At first, all the gifts came in at a regular pace. Over time, the tax collectors started skimming small gifts from the pile. In time, they were emboldened to take more elaborate gifts. They started to think that they were akin to the king because the king had not said anything. A simply dressed man arrived in town. He told the tax collectors that he was there to bring the gifts to the king. They challenged him with evil and violence. They claimed to be relatives of the king. They said that the gifts for the king had already been sent. The man said that they were holding back what was rightfully the king's. He lifted one gift after another from the pile they had by them. These were the gifts that had been skimmed. Hurriedly, they said that the king had given those gifts to them. They said the king that they loved and that he had showered them with gifts. The man asked if anyone there claimed to be the king. No one dared to go that far. The man gathered up the gifts and started to leave. The tax collectors blocked his way out. They demanded to know who he thought he was to dare taking the king's belongings. It was then that the simply dressed man straightened to his full height, and in his glory now, his cape fell from his shoulders. The man said, I am here to take what was given to me. I am taking the gifts that were given out of love for the king. I am the king. The king blessed his people, saying, I know you did not know they were taking your gifts. Be careful who you let take possession of what is mine. He then had the dumbfounded tax collectors seized and thrown into prison. As it was with the king, so it is with God. What is gathered in God's name belongs to God. No exceptions. Part of my job as a minister is to guard the property of God's from being rerouted. The prayer energy of my congregation belongs only to God. If I need help from God, I will get it directly. I do not need the energy from others. This is not to say I do not appreciate folks praying for me, but I will not ask you to pray for me. If you feel called to do it of your own volition. If you feel uneasy about praying for something or someone on their request, stop. Reassess why you are giving this to them. You have the gift to heal and help. Ask yourself if the prayer is from your heart and not something you feel pressured to do. Anything done without love is tainted. One of the things that I have been taught is that when it comes to spiritual needs, it is important to know what the energy is really going to be used for. Remember my sermon on coercing and undecided voters by a minister trying to influence an election? At this point, with the political race going on, keep this in mind. If you feel strongly about a candidate, go out and work for them. Volunteer your time. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. As for the desires of God, it is simple. God keeps God's own counsel. Any prayer for help, strength, or guidance for your favorite politician should be tempered with, "Thy will be done." Always end any prayer with, "God's will be done." We are far too limited to see the entire scope of our personal hopes and the repercussions they might have. If you do pray without this in mind, know that you are playing into some very unsavory hands. Satan loves trying to thwart God's plan in little ways and large ones. With your self-will giving Satan access to the power to influence and pressure others to bend to your will, it will help him in the attempt to pervert the will of God. I have felt this kind of pressure in an election for mayor in Houston. I remember the election well. I had just accepted my calling to be a minister. Every one of my nerves were ultra-sensitive to the flow of energy. I could feel the swelling of God's stolen energy being wielded as a coercive boot heel. I could feel several unrelated groups attempting this spiritual coup. The day of the election, my neighborhood had a charged atmosphere. There was a general celebratory atmosphere in the neighborhood. They just knew that their candidate was already elected. This was very strange to witness because the celebration started before the election polls even opened. For them, it was a foregone conclusion. As the ballot counts started coming in, the mood did not change. They still thought that their will was going to decide the election and manipulate the outcome. When there was about 75% of the vote in, the mood suddenly shifted to a different emotion. They became very angry and very quiet. This was mixed with their confusion. It was very moving for me to feel God neutralized the stolen energy, making it worth nothing. It excited me to feel the energy of God ensure a clean-fought election. I had even voted for someone other than who won. It did not matter. God's will was done. I know that the stakes are high for those upcoming elections than we have had in many years. In the realm of national elections, our decisions will be for who will speak for our nation. The temptation will be exponentially higher to try to get favorites elected by sorcerous means. This will not be allowed. Win or lose, it will be a clean fight, at least on a spiritual level. God will prevail. Pray for God's will to be done. Get out there in person if you feel strongly about a candidate. That is your responsibility as well, to have your voice heard. God bless the whole world, no exceptions. Angel Eliza.